Hey everybody, Weston here with the Hidden Given, back with another viewer request deck tech video. And today's viewer request happens to be the Scorpion God. Not the Scorpion King starring The Rock. That movie is something and probably has some of the worst CGI I have ever seen, ever. Even at the time it was bad. Don't let anyone tell you differently. But without further ado, who is the Scorpion God? Well, he's a 6/5 from Hour of Devastation with 3 generic and 1 black and 1 red. He's a Rakdos commander, and whenever a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, draw a card, and then you can pay 3 to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. When the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is good because this is an excellent way, as long as it's not exiled, to avoid commander attacks on him. Keep him at 5. So we're going to try to put -1/-1 counters on things. Try to really be our withery kind of, Rakdos deck. So how are we going to do that? Let's get straight into it. So first and foremost, I get to play some cards from the original Lorwyn Shadowmoor stuff. And that's always good. So Ashenmoor Liege, originally from, I believe, Shadowmoor is in here. Other black creatures you control get +1/+1. Other red creatures you control get +1/+1. And whenever Ashenmoor Liege becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, that player loses 1 life. We have Banewhip Punisher from Hour of Devastation, which is Banewhip Punisher enters the battlefield. You may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and then you can sacrifice to destroy target creature that has a -1/-1 counter on it. We have Blightbelly Rat, which is Toxic 1, and when Blightbelly Rat dies, proliferate. We're not trying to get the poison counter on people, we're more trying to get our -1/-1s on things. We have Corrosive Mentor, also from Shadowmoor. Black creatures you control have Wither. Now, Wither is... I wish Wither would come back more frequently. I know it did a little bit, but Wither is they deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, which is really cool. Again, this was a Shadowmoor mechanic, and man, it was fun. Drivnod, Carnage Dominus. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So if something dies with a -1/-1 counter on it, you'll get to draw 2 cards if you have the Scorpion God and Drivnod out there. Then we have Dusk Urchins, which is whenever Dusk Urchins attacks or blocks, put a -1/-1 counter on it, and when it is put into a graveyard from play, draw a card for each -1/-1 counter on it. We have Festering Mummy, so when it dies, you put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. We have the Hate Flare, which is a 5/5 for 7 from Eventide, and I believe that's the meaning Eventide one. That might be Morningtide. I can't ever remember which one that is. Wither, and then it has tap 2 and a red, and untap it. Yes, there is an untap ability. Hate Flare deals damage equal to its power to target creature or players. So what you're going to do is you tap it, probably going to attack with it, and then you untap it to give something 5 -1/-1 counters because it has Wither. So it won't deal 5 damage, it will just put 5 -1/-1 counters on. Then we have Ko, the Face Stealer. He's a 6/6 for 4 from Avatar, for 4 generic and 2 black. When Ko enters, exile up to 1 other target creature. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you may exile it and pay 1 life. Choose a creature card exiled with Ko. Ko has all the activated abilities and triggered abilities of the last chosen card. It's really interesting. I think this card can be really good. I know it costs 6, but I'm telling you, I think this card has a good place somewhere. Then we have Coolwrath Knight. Flying, Wither. Creatures your opponents control with counters on them can't attack or block. So if you put -1/-1 counters on things, you are able to essentially pacifism the creatures. We have Lockjaw Snapper. It's a 2/2 with Wither, and when it's put into a graveyard from play, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature with a -1/-1 counter on it. And we have Mahadi, Emporium Master, who is at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. So hopefully you're going to be able to kill a bunch of stuff and then use your Mahadi. And 2 creatures in this deck are going to help us facilitate the death of everything. Maha, it's Feathers Knight, or as my friends and I in my pod like to joke, maha, it's feathers bullshit, is a flying, trample, ward, discard a card, and creatures your opponents control have a base toughness of 1. So if they get that -1/-1 counter on them, they're dead. It's also a 6/5 for 5, and it's a very strong card. Then we have Massacre Girl in here, which has Menace, and when Massacre Girl enters, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, and whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Then we have Massacre Girl Known Killer, which is a 4/4 for 2 generic, 2 black, menace, and creatures you control have Wither. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card, which is pretty easy with the -1/-1 counters. We have Midnight Banshee, which is a 5/5 for 6, but also has Wither. And at the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on each non-black creature. We have Necroskitter in here, which is another Wither. It's a 1/4, and whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you may return that card to the battlefield under your control, so we can steal some things. Persistent Constrictor, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they lose a life, and you put a -1/-1 counter on target creature they control. It also has Persist. We have Skin Render, which is when it enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. We have the Sad Robot, kill him yourself to draw a card. We have Soul Snuffers, when it comes into play, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature. Spitting Dilophosaurus, I really like this card. We need to get Jurassic Park cards either reprinted or something because they're extremely expensive. This and the Ravenous Tyrannosaurus and the Prowling Raptors are all very expensive. But it has, whenever a Spitting Dilophosaurus enters the battlefield or attacks, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Creatures your opponents control with -1/-1 counters can't block. Stigma Lashery has Wither, and whenever he deals damage to a player, that player can't gain life for the rest of the game. People got mad about the card from Duskmourn about people not being able to gain life the rest of the game. Stigma Lasher is just the same card. Then we have Yawgmoth, Tyrant Physician. Protection from humans and pay 1. Sacrifice another creature, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 creature, and draw a card. And you can discard a card to proliferate. Then for our sorceries, Black Sun Zenith, put -1/-1 counters on each creature. Blasphemous Act, Dreadbore, destroy target creature or planeswalker. We have Incremental Blight, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, put 2 on another, put 3 on another. We have Infectious Inquiry. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Each opponent gets a poison counter. We have Night's Whisper. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life for target player. Spread the Sickness. Destroy target creature and then proliferate. And then we have Vat Emergence. Put target creature card from your graveyard, from a graveyard, onto the battlefield under your control, and then you proliferate. We then have our instance in the form of Bedevil. Destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Blood for the Blood God. I love this card so much. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. Discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood for the Blood God deals 8 damage to each opponent. Exile Blood for the Blood God, and then get some skills for the Skull Throne. We have Blur the Blades. Put a -1/-1 counter on a creature. Deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. Grim Affliction. You put a -1/-1 counter and then proliferate. Lightning Bolt. Puncture. Lightning Bolt does 3 damage. You're going to see why we have that here in a minute. Puncture Blast. It does 3 damage, but it has Wither. Puncture Bolt deals 1 damage and then puts a -1/-1. Scar. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. I actually remember I drafted at my friend Kyle's house. We drafted Shadowmoor, and I drafted a bunch of Scar. I lost, but I drafted a bunch of this card. We have Sudden Spoiling. Split second until end of turn creatures target player's controls lose all abilities and have base powers toughness of 0/2. Terminate. Destroy a creature. Thrill of Possibility. Discard a card, draw 2. Whisper of the Dross. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn and proliferate. For our artifacts, there's mana rocks, and then there's Contagion Clasp, which lets you proliferate and put a -1/-1 counter on something, and Contagion Engine to put a -1/-1 on all your opponent's stuff, and then you can proliferate again if you activate it. Now, for our enchantments, this is where we have some spicy stuff. We have All Will Be One. Whenever you put one or more counters on a permanent or player, All Will Be One deals that much damage to target opponent. Each target opponent, creature an opponent controls, or planeswalker they control. We have black markets. Whenever something dies, you get a counter. You get black mana in your first main phase equal to the counters. Blowfly Infestation. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard for play, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Cartouche of Ambition enters. You put a -1 on something, and then the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 in lifelink. Crumbling Ashes. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy target creature with a -1/-1 counter. We have Everlasting Torment. Here is the fun, spicy tech. This is a fun enchantment. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. All damage is dealt as though its sources had Wither. And then to combo with this, we have our All Will Be One, which is really fun, right? So, okay. Hear me out here. So we have Everlasting Torment. And what you do is you have your Everlasting Torment and your All Will Be One out. And you deal any damage. Any damage at all. Okay? To a creature. Say you Lightning Bolted. So then that puts 3 -1/-1 counters onto that creature. Well, that activates your All Will Be One. And then you target a creature for 3 there. Well, that activates your All Will Be One. And you can clear the entire board with All Will Be One. As long as Everlasting Torment is out and you manage to deal at least 1 damage to a creature, you can wipe the entire board. It's really fun. It's really cool. We have Fists of the Demigod. Enchant creature. As long as enchanted creature is black, it gets +1/+1 and Wither. As long as it is red, it has First Strike and +1/+1. Other ways to work with Everlasting Torment is we have Pestilence and Pyrohemia. So that way you can pay 1, deals 1 damage to each creature. So if it has Wither, -1/-1 counters. We have Pharesis. Enchanted creature has Infect. Nest of Scarabs. Whenever you put a 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, you create that many black insect creature tokens. They're getting eaten by the scarabs. This reminds me of the scene from The Mummy where the scarab crawls out of his skull into his mouth out of the hole and he eats it. And God, to this day, still gives me the heebie-jeebies. And then we have Sadistic Obsession, which is enchant creature. It has tap 1 black, tap it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And then we have our lands, pretty budgety. A bunch of basics, some Rogue's Passage, right? Rakdos, Carnarium, Graven Cairns. I think Graven Cairns might be our most expensive land here. It is. But yeah, pretty simple, straightforward. $276 for a deck that is guaranteed to annoy your enemies and be able to put down their creatures. This deck has some combos in it, right? And it's not an infinite kill combo with the All Will Be One because if you hit an enemy for 1, you can't put a counter on something, so you can just wipe the board. It's an infinite board wipe. But let me know what you think of the Scorpion God deck. Honestly, I might build this one in paper because it just seems that fun. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, I'm Weston with the Hidden Gibbon, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.